Hello everyone and welcome to the Animezilia, and thank you for joining me as we talk about the Tower of God episode 11. And boy oh boy, things are heating up, and this episode had a lot packed into it. From clean and fantastic animation to some great plot development and character villainy. The characters on display in this episode were all fantastic, so let's talk about what happens and the characters themselves. So one thing I really did like, however, about this episode was the way in which the episode played out from a dialogue point of view. Every time something big was said or asked, it got the viewer, aka myself, thinking and guessing as to what's going to happen next. Now, some of the twists were actually very easy to guess. However, it was the easy twists that were actually revealed very quickly on. So, for example, when Kun asks about whether or not the anima can control the net dolphins or the bull, the response from the little girl is saying yes, but not myself, maybe a ranker could do it. Now if you pair that up with the line from Ren, who is the character in the sheep that's just to the, right of me, basically he says just before this, "You fell for my trap." And then that obviously comes straight after we see Endorsi and Anak running after the bull into this dark cave area. So, of course, as soon as that line was said, my brain just went, yep, that's it. He's controlling the movements, which obviously meant that he could lure Endorsi, Anak, and follow them into his trap. But I think the star of this episode was actually, in fact, Hong Sun-yu. And here's why. Looking at the dialogue from this episode that was presented to us, everything that was said that was very key and relevant leads back to this character. It was up to him as to the final test and what it could be, because Bam came back from seeing the Floor Guardian and he said, "Rachel can come with me, and the rest of the details are up to you." So that, first of all, basically makes you go, okay, so whatever's happening is as a result from this character. And pairing that with last week's episode, we know that this character is a little bit shady. And we can look even further into another line that he says when they're talking about the actual test, is saying that even rankers would struggle and run away from the bull. Now, this was used in a way to help motivate and to get Endorsi and Anak interested in basically going after the bull, thus helping lure them towards Ren of the Royal Enforcement. You see where I'm going with this? He then asks Bam, or we find out that he asked Bam, what was the wish? And Bam's response was, once he got to the top of the tower, he just wants to basically see the cafeteria. He wants to be with his friends, he wants to basically be around them and have a good time. That's one thing that's very key and very prevalent to Bam's character. Now, we noticed in this episode the forces of the goblins are very high in number, to the point where the characters are like saying they're going to struggle. And this could have been manipulated by Hong Sun-yu to make Bam's friends struggle, or in the worst case scenario, die or get seriously injured. Thus, this would play on Bam's psyche, making him feel like, oh, you guys are my friends and you really didn't have to do that, but you risk your life just for me? No, I can't let you do that anymore. I'm no longer going to do anything. This would obviously play on Bam's mental state and obviously maybe take him out of the tower, because Hong Sun-yu sees him as a potential threat to the tower, and we know that this character just wants to eliminate them. So, why make the test easy? Make it as hard as possible, make Bam feel guilty by the end of it. However, we know that's not going to be the case, but I digress. Another way we can tell this character was very good in both his body language as well as his dialogue was the facial expressions that he gave off. It gave a very uneasy sort of vibe, and I love the smile that he gave Rax when in response to him maybe turning him small again. It's just, it's that, mess with me and I will mess you up. It's just, it just adds to his character more, and I'm finding myself liking this character more and more, but I just think that the way everything connected to him, yes, he was the one that set it all up, so it's obvious, but it's those little details and those little lines that just help kind of expand what's happening. So this episode really helped push Hong Sung-yu as this smart and clever villain, which I really do appreciate because I don't like villains that are just kind of, you know, I'm going to destroy the world and everything. This guy's actually using brains and smarts, and he's making it to a way that he's maybe wouldn't be found out. That's a horrible way of phrasing it, but basically he's doing it very smartly to the point where it's very hard for anyone to detect that it's him doing it. However, it's nice to see that Lei Ro is actually being suspicious of this character at this point. I really do like that. Seeing Lei Ro kind of suspicious, and yes, we've seen hints of this throughout, because as soon as Lei Ro spoke to Akun about basically someone planted a letter, it must be someone on your side, with Hao and everything like that, he's obviously become more and more suspicious. But seeing the suspicion grow is very good for both characters, in my personal opinion. Now, let's talk about Ren of the Royal Enforcement. This character, seeing how he played a part in this episode, was super cool and entertaining. I like the very unhinged vibe that he gave off. He was very kind of quirky, very ominous, very kind of... I don't know, he was just unhinged, and it was a little bit unsettling. And basically, it works for his character. I love the fact that he knew exactly how to get under Anak's skin to make a show display of anger and resentment and just pure rage. He displays some very small hint of immaturity in this episode, which obviously adds to his character quirks and everything else, which I thought was very cool. So this character, I don't know, it just makes me feel uneasy just watching him. And his ability where he just opens his mouth and things fly out, ooh, okay, fine. But he's very powerful, and he states that as well, and it's a good showcasing from him. So the scenes with Rachel and Bam were a little odd. I wasn't quite sure what to make of it, except that it was time for Bam and Rachel to kind of catch up and to reaffirm that yes, Bam has made bonds and friendship throughout this series so far, and I like the fact that Bam was acting very confident in this episode. It's like Rachel gave him confidence to kind of boost his character up and to make him seem more of a reliable character, which is something I really did like. Again, it links to Rachel, but his reasoning for being more confident I thought was very sweet and very innocent for his character too, because basically he just wants to help prevent Rachel from feeling anxious. Obviously, Rachel is a very helpless character at the minute. She can't really do much. Maybe she can produce a bit of Shinsu and kind of defend that way. But at the end of the day, she can't maneuver very easily. They're trapped in this Shinsu bubble, and there's not really a lot of places to run. So Bam has to protect her if they come under fire, which I presume they will do. I can't see it being very easy and very kind of, gentle for Bam and Rachel at this point, while their friends just struggle. But hey, they might go down that route. They might not. Okay, fine. I gotta talk about him. I got to. Shibisu earned my respect in this episode. Yes, he's gotten better. I found the reasoning as to why he's helping Bam out to be very interesting, and it fits with both his character and the old hag. His words, not mine. Don't come at me. And even the line about the ball being powerful, even for a ranker, that was obviously a way to trick Anak and Dorsey, but Shibisu was obviously under that impression as well. So when Shibisu was like seeing the dolphin and went, yeah, I can't run, because if I do, Bam and Rachel aren't going to be able to complete their test because this dolphin's going to get eaten. So he actually ran and he tried to fight this monster that was way out of his league from what he was understood and what he perceived it to be. However, this actually made this character gain huge amount of respect, in my opinion, and it backs up the idea of why he wants to help Bam, and it does also show that he's in fact quite reliable in a very tricky situation, like he can show up when he needs to. Shibisu, you did a good job, keep it up. Prove to everyone that was calling you a clown, me included, that you're actually not. Next up, let's talk about Dorsey and Anak. The comedy and the banter between these two characters was really fun to see. I like the new sort of vibe that these two are giving off. Anak is somewhat chilled out a bit more, which I thought was really cool. However, I thought it was a bit odd and a bit too quick. That's the one criticism I do have. I mentioned it in my last week's review in episode 10, that basically seeing Anak looking cute and having her hair done up was kind of a bit too quick in terms of like a 180 degree personality switch. But moving on from that, Endorsi trying to act tough and almost like a big sister to Anak, I thought was really sweet. So, do I think that Anak will get killed by Endorsi? No, of course not. I see an event folding in one of two ways. There are two ways in which this can go, and I'm going to explain my personal ideas and how they should kind of fix this situation that they're in now. Anak's pretty much bleeding out. She's not in a good place. Endorsi's not really in a good place because she's hurt, but she's been told she has to kill Anak, which obviously isn't going to happen. The bond is growing between these two characters to the point where I can't see that playing out. But there is an interesting party member that might be dropping in a second. Because as we have Ren of the Royal Enforcement Guard kind of, lurking in a route, we also have Yuri's team lurking. And there's a line in there that basically said that the only way to interfere with this test is to drop in from this point. And then Yuri just ups and kicks a navigator off the cliff. Now, Yuri's navigator could fall into the void, basically breaking up the tension in the room, and we could see a situation in where we have a team up with Endorsi and Yuri, two princesses of Jihad, like proper princesses, maybe Anak, but like I said, she's leaking at the moment, so probably not, versus Ren of the Royal Enforcement, and obviously the Bull. I think this could be amazing. We haven't really seen what Yuri is capable of, or what her team is. Like, maybe Endorsi doesn't play a part in this, maybe it's just Yuri and her team. But still, I think if Yuri intervenes, it could really do a good amount of things for her character. We've seen Yuri teased every so often throughout the series. Let's see her finally do something. She doesn't have to use the Black March. She could use Green April because it's now there available. But seeing how she would fight, to me, would be something that I really, really want to see. And finally, the second thing that I could see happening is, I can't remember his name. Oh, I can't remember his name. Okay, fine. I had to go look it up, but Lordro, the guy in the sleeping bag. Maybe Lordro could find them as his sleeping bag has been taken away and it's now like kind of breaking up the path that the blonde girl found. So maybe we could see him finally getting serious. That's one thing I'd really like. We kind of got a glimpse of it in the Crown game. However, I want to see this character go all out. Maybe if he knows his teammates are in trouble, he'll actually wake up and not be sleepy and actually just kind of fight for real. That could be a possibility. Although personally, I like the idea of seeing Yuri and her team get involved and just kind of going all out. Because if Yuri's team intervenes, it won't affect the test results in any way, shape or form because they're not exactly helping Bam out. They're helping take care of a enforcement agent, which is actually hindering the test themselves. So they're kind of laying their own law down as such. But, you understand what I mean. So, overall, I thought this episode was absolutely fantastic and well worth the watch. I can't wait to see what happens next. Honestly, it's episode 12. If it's anywhere near as this episode, and it probably is going to be a lot better in terms of like climactic sort of things to come, then I'm hyped up. I'm excited. This has some brilliant animation in it, some great plot / character development and progression. The sound effects were okay. There was one real downside with the sound effects, and that was the opening sound effect we have. It was just really weird and didn't really fit into place, especially after it basically comes after the intro. It's the first sound that we hear after the intro, and it's very jarring. And it's the scene in where Bam is talking to the Floor Guardian, and it's just, I don't know, it hurt my ears a bit. One other thing I do have a bit of criticism about by the end of this episode was the fact that the test is no longer like the important thing. I actually spent a little bit of time kind of trying to understand the test, make sure I got everything perfect in terms of my explanation for the test, so I rewatched it quite a few times, and I realised hold on a minute, the test isn't actually that important. Because it's easy for them to pass, it's what's happening around the test that's actually what, the viewers should be really interested and invested in. So, honestly, I wish the tests can kind of come back to be a bit more important. But where the word final comes in, I'm hoping that means just for the floor. But I guess once they establish that Hong Sung-yu is the actual villain, Lee Min-ho probably is going to put the pieces together. I don't know how, what's his name, Quint is going to kind of fit into this. But I can see a situation in where the tests kind of don't come back in part 2. So, season 2, we don't have the test anymore. Instead, it's them trying to climb the tower, but they're always kind of met with this obstacle that is Hong Sung-yu. That's my personal take on it. They might, prove me wrong at all. But honestly, if that's the case and the tests come back being, really important, brilliant. Because I like the tests. They're quite fun. They're great to kind of speculate and to see how they're going to go and to kind of see if I understand them correctly. And some good things can arise from there. I'm hoping it's not going to just turn into all action, because I like the smarts that the series has brought. So hopefully we can go on that. Apart from that though, apart from those 2 little kind of criticisms, this episode was absolutely fantastic. If you haven't gone and seen it yet, make sure you go and watch it. You won't be disappointed. All in all, check out my video, which should be on the screen as I'm saying now, about my God of High School review. I've started to do the webtoon comics of that. The Tower of God webtoon is coming, just waiting for the series to finish so I don't spoil anything. If I, start reading, I don't want to get spoiled for the anime, but obviously you will get my thoughts on the webtoon of this series once the anime concludes. All in all, have a great day. Like the video if you liked the video. Comment down below all of your thoughts on the episode. What did you think? I want to know. Let's start that discussion. And if you dislike the video, dislike it, but let me know why. Feedback is greatly appreciated. Other than that, arigato, matane, goodbye. Have a great day. Whew.